You know, there used to be a story about Willie Sutton, the bank robber, and he was the most wanted in the FBI list. They finally captured him in the Midwest, tried him, convicted him, sent him to jail for life. And the reporters were covering the trial, and they asked him, Mr. Sutton, why do you rob banks? Remember this story? And why did he rob banks? Because that's where the money is, yeah. Now, why do you want to be in the top 10% in your field? Because that's where the money is, yeah. There's no money there's no money in the bottom 80%. The money is in the top 10 or 20%. That's where all the money is. And sometimes people don't realize it, that you're only a very, very small distance away from being in the top 10 or 20% where all the money is. There's a principle called the winning edge principle. And the winning edge principle says that people who succeed have the winning edge, which means sometimes they're just a little tiny bit better, or they're doing things just a little bit different in one particular area, and it leads to an extraordinary difference in results. There's a principle that says that if a horse runs in a horse race and wins by a nose, it wins 10 times the prize money of a horse that comes in second by a nose. Now, does this mean that the horse that came in first by a nose is 10 times faster, or twice as fast, or 50% faster? No, it's just a nose faster. People who succeed in life are a nose better. They're a nose ahead of people who don't even appear on the rankings. If you look at the Olympics, the people who win first place will be remembered. The people in second place will be remembered by a few people. People in third place will be quickly forgotten, and nobody else will be remembered at all. But it's always the person who wins by a nose. And do you see that competition where somebody won by 0.33 of a second, and that makes him the #1 in the world? It's fascinating.
And here's something that's important. Whenever we say this, people say, well, gee, you know, the top people in my field, they're so successful, they're doing so well. Let me tell you.
This idea of being in the top 10% is a major idea, and let me explain it. When I was growing up, I never thought I could be in the top 10% of anything. I failed in school. I did poorly in school. I got fired from jobs. Try getting fired. I used to pump gas in a gas station. I got fired from that because I wasn't good enough. I got fired from washing dishes. Try getting fired from washing dishes. It doesn't do your self-esteem very much good. I've gotten fired from more jobs than you've had. I mean, it never dawned on me that I could be good at anything. And then I learned something that changed my life. I learned that everybody in the top 10% started where? In the bottom 10%. Everybody who's at the top and doing well was once at the bottom and doing poorly. Everybody who's at the front of the buffet line of life was once at the back of the line. Everybody who's at the top of your field was once not in your field at all. And anything that anyone else has done, you can do as well. It's almost like walking. If I said to you, I will pay you $1 million if you will walk from here to KL. Physically walk. Now, it doesn't matter how long you take. You can run if you want. But if you will just walk, you cannot take a ride, you have to walk. Now, if I told you, and you believed me, and the $1 million was there, you double-checked, all right? And you get $1 million from walking from here to downtown. Is there anybody here who could not do that? Okay. Okay. So we could all do it. Is that correct? Now, is there anybody here who is a runner, a jogger, really fit? But the point is that some people who are really fit will get there quickly. They'll do 25, 35 miles a day, okay? Some people who are not very fit will do 5 or 10 miles a day. Doesn't really matter. Everybody who keeps walking will get there. Are you with me so far? This is an important metaphor. Everybody who keeps walking toward the top 10% gets there. If you keep learning and practicing and trying and reading and get associated with other people, if you just keep putting one foot in front of the other, you will achieve that level of financial income. There's nothing that can stop you except who? Only you can stop you by stopping. And so therefore you find that people who have no advantages at all, but have one, is they just don't stop. They can be a complete idiot. They can have every disadvantage. They can have limited education. They could come from a terrible country with no opportunities. They could have no family and be survivors of a terrible experience, but they just put one foot in front of the other. They get to the front of the line. They get to the top 10%. You can be in the top 10%. So this is what I learned, which changed my life when I was 24 years old, is that if you make a decision to get into the top 10%, and you don't take it back, you will get there. If you'll just do what others have done, you will get there. And it may take a week, it may take a month. Do you know how long it takes to achieve mastery in any profession? It takes 7 years to reach the point where you're in the top 10%. Some people may do it faster, but very seldom. It took year after year of working. Now, that doesn't mean that you're broke for 6 years and 11 months and suddenly you make a lot of money. It's a gradual uphill. But the fact is, to get to the point where you're making the kind of money that you're capable of, it will take 7 years. But the time is going to pass anyway. So you might as well be there at the end of the 7 years. Do you know how many people are still here at the end of 7 years? They haven't made any progress because they never put in the extra effort. They never made the decision. They never went for it. So to make a decision, I'm going to be in the top 10%. And I'm going to do whatever it takes to get there. And you know what? There's nothing to stop you from getting to the top 10%. The only reason people don't get into the top 10% is why? They don't decide to. And if they decide to, they don't get started. And if they get started, they quit. All right? So it's very important. But optimists say, hey, I can be in the top 10%. I can be. And they just never quit. They just keep on going. No matter how much criticism they get, no matter how many problems they have, get fired from their jobs, they have setbacks and difficulties, they just keep walking. Just keep going. They just keep going. And they get there and people say, boy, you're sure lucky. No, you weren't. You make your own luck. You make your own luck by deciding where you're going and getting on the road.
Now let's look at the big picture calmly and analytically. Since statistics prove only 5% makes the grade financially, in a country where there's more than enough to go around, all the rest must be doing something wrong. And what do the leading educators and experts say is wrong with most people today? They just don't think for themselves. Well, it's obvious then that if we don't want to conform, because by conforming we miss the financial boat, we must think. We must think now, before it's too late. Naturally, I have no way of knowing what it is you do for a living or what your circumstances happen to be. But more than 20 years of research have proved one thing. No matter what your job may be at this moment, it holds the key to your future. It contains the road to greatness if it's handled in a certain way. There's no such thing as a job that is not loaded with hidden opportunities. From checking hats to laying bricks, from working in a factory to selling shoes, whether you work for someone else or for yourself, there is hidden in your daily work more opportunity than you could develop in a lifetime, if you will look for it. How many ideas do you think you could get in a single day if you really started to think? 5, 20, 100? Well, have you ever stopped to think that one idea can make you rich? How do you think your job will be handled 10 years from now? Can you do it that way now? What improvements will be made in your industry during the next 50 years? You know that improvements are inevitable. Someone's going to have to come up with them. Why not you? Your mind is a great and largely unexplored continent. You own it, and no one else can trespass upon it. We know it contains unbelievable riches, but they must be found, and there's only one way to explore and prospect the human mind. We must think. Like any other kind of prospecting, it takes time and dedication, but of this you can be absolutely certain. If you will begin to do your job as you have never done it before, and think constantly of ways in which it can be done better, you will immediately belong to the top 5%, and you will definitely get the ideas that will guarantee you a great future. Remember, no matter what it is that you are now doing for a living, it contains the key to greatness if you will only look for it until you find it.